Well, I went down, things changing for me.
John didn't have a bed yet, so he laid all of his bedding on the floor and patted it with some of his clothing from the closet. He couldn't find his pillow. Had he left it behind? He stuffed underwear into his sock. That would have to do. He'd find a bed and table and chairs tomorrow. James and he had stopped at the grocery store before going to get his boxes. He had some food and whiskey, and he remembered to buy some batteries for his transistor radio. He ended up laying on his stomach on the pallet with a flashlight and a deck of cards. He played solitaire on the floor with jazz from the radio to keep him company. He was drinking from the bottle. There was no ice, nothing to mix it with. He soon passed out. The baby's scream woke him up. He was very drunk. Waiting in his sleep and only half conscious, he climbed onto his feet. Opening the door, the hallway outside was black. The baby was crying. He felt his way around the corner. There were people in a bright open doorway. There was James and the baby, and a man struggling with him, his back a black silhouette. John grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him away. The guy went down and there was a flash, like a gun going off. John jumped on the top of the guy. He punched and got punched. Then the guy got away and was kicking him. The baby was screaming, but it was behind him. He struggled up and tried to see who was there in front of him. There was just this big black spot. He rushed as they were falling. The floor disappeared and the flight of stairs came up like a bat, up to batter them, and the other guy disappeared, and John was in the back of the steps, twisted and hurt. He couldn't think or move. James was over him. "John?" he groaned. "Can you move?" "Up," he managed to say. James helped him turn so he could sit on the step. There was a railing above him. "He's gone," John groaned. "I think so. Can I go back to bed? That was stupid." He wanted to laugh, but it hurt. "Help!" James helped him stand and pulled himself up by using the banister, an arm around James' shoulder, and he could slowly climb up. Everything ached. "Baby?" John asked. "They're okay." "Bed?" James helped him back down the hall. The flashlight was still on the side and inside John's open doorway. They made it into the pallet and got down his knees, and then he just collapsed. "Sorry," he could hear himself say. James put the sock pillow under his head. John was out. James picked up the flashlight to look over his friend. There were no wounds he could see. John was breathing. He left him to go knock on Cindy's door. "James? It's just me. He's gone." She opened the door. Ashley was whimpering on her chest. Cindy shook her head. "I'm so sorry you got into this mess," she said. "Is John all right?" "I don't know. He's so drunk he's comatose. I got him back to his apartment. He's not bleeding as far as I can see, but we might need to bring him to the hospital." "Sure. I should go and figure out if he really left. You have a flashlight?" She shook her head. "John has one. Lock yourself back inside," James said. This wasn't done yet. He went back to John to grab his flashlight. His friend was still breathing. James was scared to death to go down the stairs. The guy had a gun. There was something at the bottom. And the front door was wide open. It was a body. He went down slowly. Nothing was moving. The body looked all twisted up. The pistol was lying beside him. James picked it up and then nudged the guy with his foot. Nothing. He looked at the front door. The window had been shattered. The guy had just reached in and turned the inside knob. Him stepping outside. There was nothing. No cars, no one around. He came back in. There wasn't really a way to close the door with the guy lying there. He put his hands down next to the guy's mouth and nose. He wasn't breathing. He climbed back up to Cindy's door and knocked. "James? It's me." She opened it. "Ashley?" he asked. "She fell asleep. I put her in her cradle." "The guy is dead at the bottom of the stairs. I have his gun." "I should have never opened the door," Cindy said. "I just thought it was John coming to borrow something." "What do you think we should do?" he asked. "I can't close the front door. He's in the way." "We can't leave it like that. Someone will notice and call the cops." "We'll need to dump the body somewhere. We could probably hide it in the car till tomorrow." She got her keys from the kitchen counter. "You think she'll wake up?" James asked. "We won't be gone too long," she said. Downstairs, James flashed a light to show her the body. She grimaced at his rose. "It's Bobby. He was from my neighborhood. We were in school together. You didn't see anyone else?" "No." "Walk me out to the car," she said. He went with her. She hopped in the car and he walked back until she brought him around. Pulling up, she left the car running and looked up and down the street when she got out. "There's an old rug in there. We can just roll him up in that," she said. "In the trunk?" he asked. The floor of the back seat would be better. People look at you if you have the trunk open." They straightened him out on the center of the rug and rolled him up in it. She went back to open the back passenger door and they carried it out. James had to run around and pull it from the other side. He just fit the space. "I'm going to back up," she said. "Okay. John has cardboard and tape. I'll try to cover the broken window." He drove the car back around to the parking space. Coming up the alley was really lonesome. This was the first dead body. The guy had tried to kidnap Ashley. What would happen if he got away with the baby? John had saved him though he might not even remember what happened in the morning. Is this the way life is going to be with Cindy? He went back up to John's apartment. The guy was snoring, so he left him. Grabbing cardboard and tape and his broom, James went back down to cover the broken window and clean up the glass. He sat on the stairs and smoked a cigarette before going back up to Cindy. The temptation is just to walk back to his place with something he had tried not to take too seriously. That would definitely make her feel deserted, and he couldn't do that to her. He went up. Sleeping seemed out of the question, so they just watched television with the sound down, and she made them drinks. After the second one, he got brave. "So, have you seen other people die before?" "Yes. A lot. Where I grew up, there were gangs and dealers and wife beaters and people with knives and guns. If you didn't die, there was a good chance of getting arrested, and then you might not come back from jail." James had no idea what to say. "My husband has killed people. His brother was the real deal." "You trying to scare me?" James asked. "No one knows you exist, and no one but you and John and Daddy know where I am." She didn't want to mention Pierre. He might have other friends, others smarter than Bobby, but she knew that would make him go away. "And Pierre?" she said finally. "Bobby's partner." It was noon when John woke up. His entire body ached and felt broken. He sat up and then immediately laid back down. There was someone in his apartment. Who's there? His head was pulsating. James came out of the kitchen. I'm making coffee, he said. Don't think I could hold it down. You are pretty beat up. I can take you to the hospital. Don't know yet, John said. How about a water and a bunch of aspirin? A lot. James returned with a glass and an entire bottle of aspirin. Can you help me get over the wall so I can sit up some? Sure. What do you want me to do? Could you just pull the bedroll over and with me on it? James tried but couldn't budge it. I'll roll off, John told him. James moved it. Then he came over to put his arms under John's armpit and tried to pull him up, over the way. John pushed off with his feet, trying to help. God, he hurt. They finally got him close enough so James could roll up on the bedroll and push it behind him so at least his head and shoulders were up far enough so he could drink and swallow the aspirin. James went to the kitchen 2 more times to refill his glass. Then he sat down on the floor across from him. What happened last night? John asked. You saved Ashley from being kidnapped. One of the guys that kidnapped Cindy broke into the building and tried to snatch the baby. He got away? The guy fell down the stairs and must have broken his neck at the bottom. He's dead. Christ! John shook his head. I didn't really see him. He was just a black blob in front of me. The police come? Nope. We hid the body in Cindy's car. We'll have to dump it somewhere. We would have been arrested if the cops came. Who was this guy? John asked. He works for Cindy's husband. The cocaine in the trunk was supposed to be delivered to him. The guy's gun is on your kitchen counter. Cindy and I didn't know what to do with the baby around. Neither of us know about guns. You want to try some coffee now? John nodded and James brought him a steaming cup and set it beside him. You sure you don't want to go to the hospital? I don't think anything's broken. I think I'll just try to sleep more. James looked at John and watched the light of day play across his face. Who's Deborah? James asked. John's mouth squirmed. It was a fucking metaphor. I'll come back and check on you in an hour, James said. Thanks for saving us last night. Sure. John hesitated. She was my mother.